Hello, welcome one and all to the 9th episode of Dylan Explains Everything. My name is Dylan. In case you couldn't tell by the title, I'm the one explaining everything, including the topic of today, mysterious monuments, specifically Stonehenge, the pyramids of Egypt, and the Moai. I'm going to be running through a lot of facts, so if you're curious as to where I get my information, be sure to check the description below for a list of links. So what do I mean by mysterious monuments? Well, mysterious is obvious. We don't know a whole lot about any of these three things. But monuments might not be the best word to use. A monument is defined as a statue, building, or other structure erected to commemorate a famous or notable person or event. The problem is not all of these are for famous people or events, so it might be better to call it a structure. But mysterious structures doesn't roll off the tongue as well as mysterious monuments, and this is alliteration, so I don't care. The first monument I'd like to talk about is Stonehenge, which was made in England and consists of about 100 stones in circles when you look at it from the sky. It was made in the early to mid 3000s BC and ended in 2500 BC, which meant it took somewhere between 1000 and 1500 years to make. So what makes Stonehenge so mysterious? Well, the first thing is that the stones were extremely heavy, which, even by nowadays standards, they were pretty heavy, but we'd be able to move them pretty well because we have things like the wheel, which they did not have in England at the time. And they had to carry these stones an estimated 200 miles without any sort of transportation technology. The problem is, wheels were made in Mesopotamia around 3200 BC, and Stonehenge was started somewhere between 4000 and 3500 BC, which meant that they had no wheels when they started. Added on to that, wheels didn't make it to Britain until 1700 BC, and that was 8 centuries after Stonehenge was finished. So how did they make Stonehenge? The answer is very carefully. They used primitive tools to make trenches in the ground called henges for the stones. Next, they got 80 blue stones, 43 of which still remain there to this day, and they put them in the trenches in a horseshoe or circular pattern. Next up, many years later, they brought sandstones to finish off Stonehenge. This included making the trilithon, the 3 major things in the middle. There are about 50 of these sandstones still remaining to this day. Here's where the amazing thing comes in. These sandstones had to be transported 25 miles and weighed 40 tons, 80,000 pounds, or 36,287 kilograms, and they somehow did it without a wheel. Also really astonishing, the blue stones had to be transported 200 miles, 8 times as long, and they weighed 1/10 of the weight, 4 tons, which is still 8,000 pounds, or 3,629 kilograms. And again, there's more of them, which means that these are both really insane to do without a wheelbarrow. This all seems really impossible unless you believe in magic. I'm joking, obviously. But in the 12th century, people really believed that Merlin, the wizard from the King Arthur stories, helped make Stonehenge as a burial site. Also, a fun fact for you Harry Potter fans, this is Sirius Black's wand. This is wrong on multiple accounts, as the people that Merlin were based off of are all born way after Stonehenge's construction. So we have no idea who made this. We also don't know why Stonehenge was created. Some people believe it was a burial site for the fallen people in a war, others believe it had a religious significance for someone's religion, and some people think that it was a calendar using the stars and the sun to calculate what day it is. The problem is all of these have multiple loopholes and are little more than theories. The more modern and widely accepted theory is that the place was used for healing, as multiple sick or injured people were known for going there, and the blue stones used to make it also had healing properties according to local legends. Fun fact before we move on, the first Duke of Buckingham, George Villiers, actually dug down at the center of Stonehenge looking for buried treasure. The next monument I'm going to be talking about is the pyramids of Egypt. Now there's a lot of these, and I'm going to try and cram this information into a third of this video, but if you guys want me to do a full video on the pyramids of Egypt, and possibly Egypt as a whole, be sure to click the like button to let me know. Like I just said, there are a lot of pyramids of Egypt, so I'm going to be mainly focusing on the pyramids of Giza, which were made somewhere around the 2500s BC. Now, at the time, Egypt was one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful nation in the world, and they were also extremely rich, which allowed them to build ridiculously big and heavy structures known as the pyramids. Now, at the time, pharaohs were thought to be divine and gods in most cases, so when they died, part of their soul was still in them, and that needed to be kept somewhere sacred. Therefore, in order to keep the bodies from becoming rotten or unholy, they had to mummify them and then bury them in the pyramids near their relatives and ancestors. The first one in the pyramids of Giza was for the pharaoh Khufu. The pyramid's height is about 480 feet tall, and the sides are about 750 feet long, and it also had 3 smaller pyramids around it for Khufu's queens. It is, to this day, the largest pyramid, and it's still mostly intact, unlike some of the other pyramids. 2 more pyramids of Giza were made, the first one for Khafre, Khufu's son, and the second one for Menkaure, the son of Khafre. Now, originally people thought that slaves and foreigners made these, but that was disproven as laborers during floods of the Nile would work on these instead. Now this is where things get kind of interesting. The first pyramid, Khufu's pyramid, had 2.3 million blocks in it, and they weighed 2.5 tons each, 5,000 pounds per block, or 2,268 kilograms, an insane amount of weight per block. A Greek historian, Herodotus, even theorized that it would take 100,000 men to make these pyramids, even though it's been proven that only around 20,000 actually worked on this. This insane weight and little workforce springs up a few theories. Now keep in mind, they have wheels at this time, so transporting the stones to the pyramid area isn't as big of a challenge. The problem is you have to carry these 2.5 ton blocks up a pyramid that's 480 feet tall in order to get it to the top. And that's just for the top layer. All the layers underneath it also have to be brought there, and you only have 20,000 people doing it. So how is this possible? This is why some people like to say that they think aliens helped build the pyramid. Even though this is heavily improbable, it does explain how they would get the blocks up to the top of the pyramid very quickly and easily. As the wealth and the power of the pharaohs decreased, so did the size of the pyramids. This kept happening until the 21st century BC, when Pepi II had his pyramid made, and it was the smallest and last pyramid that would be made. He was at the very end of the economic and divine power of pharaohs. Even now, over 4 millennia later, we still have no idea how the pyramids were made. What we do know is how astonishing and humongous they truly are. Fun fact before we move on, because of tomb raiders and Egyptian robbers, we don't actually have all of the bodies and supplies that were buried in the pyramids because they were stolen. The last mysterious monument I'd like to talk about today is the Moai, or Easter Island heads. These are what make Easter Island such an important and memorable place in Polynesia today. Easter Island's official name to the natives who lived there was Rapa Nui, and the Eastern Island heads, as I mentioned before, were called the Moai. Now, these were most likely built to honor dead ancestors, but we don't know for sure, and they were most likely made between 1000 and 1600 AD. There have been about 887 of these Moai found to this day, and they've averaged around 13 feet tall, and they've weighed 13 tons, which even with the wheel is still an enormous amount of weight to carry. That's 11,793 kilograms, or 26,000 pounds. They were mostly made out of tuff, a volcanic rock, but 14 of them were made out of basalt. Even though most people accept that these represent ancestors, not much is actually known about them. Like why they're there, what they really represent, why there's 887 of them that have been found, and why 14 of them were made of basalt. There were actually a lot of statues that were made in the early years of Rapa Nui. However, a lot of them were destroyed in order to make way for the Moai. As I've already said, these were very big, but the biggest one was 32 feet tall and weighed 82 tons. That's 164,000 pounds, or 74,500 kilograms. That's the biggest rock we've talked about so far. To put that in perspective, that's about 13 of the bricks that were used to make the pyramid, or 20 of the bluestone rocks, or 2 of the sandstone bricks which were used to make Stonehenge. This is the biggest rock we've talked about, and this is after it's been cut. Unfortunately, in the later years of the island, around 1680 AD, there were multiple civil wars that broke out that destroyed a lot of the statues on the island and plenty of the inhabitants that lived there. Eventually, in the 1700s, Europeans started arriving at the island to survey it. They're the ones that named it Easter Island instead of Rapa Nui. Between the time that the Spanish came to the island in 1770 and the British came to the island in 1774, the island's population went from 3,000 to just 700. Then, in 1786, a French explorer came and found that the island was all the way up to 2,000 people. But in 1862, Peru came looking for slaves and spread smallpox to the island, killing most of the inhabitants, until 1877 when there were only 111 natives left. Eventually, after Christianity came to the island, Chile annexed it, making it one of their own territories. They then started sending over citizens and governors in order to control the island, eventually leading to the entire island being completely Chilean citizens rather than natives. And to this day, no one really knows why the Moai are there. Some people think that maybe the aliens that helped build the pyramids came over and helped with building the Moai, though most people admit they have no idea. Whether you think this is all very interesting or you wish the video would just end sooner, these mysterious monuments have been studied, excavated, and researched by historians and archaeologists alike for many years. With all that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to know when videos are uploaded, be sure to click subscribe and wait for them to be uploaded every Saturday at 10 a.m. If you want to show your appreciation for the channel, be sure to click like and share it with your friends. And if you have any thoughts or suggestions, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. And until we meet again, my name's Dylan and I explain everything.